Hi, I'm Michael Stittle.
And I'm Nik Nanos.
And welcome to Trendline. So it's going to be a busy show, Nik. The Prime Minister has enjoyed pretty good support during the pandemic, but that may be coming to an end with this ongoing WE scandal in which the Prime Minister and Finance Minister Bill Marneau failed to recuse themselves from the WE charity contract with the federal government. We're going to look at that, but then next we're going to talk about previous apologies from the Prime Minister, their messaging, how they're handling this, and what lies ahead for the party. And then at the very end of the show, as usual, we'll have your Nik's prediction with a bit of a twist, if I can say that, in this episode. So, Nik, what are the latest numbers now for the party, for the Liberals?
Well, the latest Nanos weekly ballot numbers have the Liberals at around 35%, Conservatives at 29, NDP at 17. But, to put this into context, so right now they have a 6-point advantage, which is not too bad, right?
Yeah.
But we rewind, if we rewind 4 weeks ago, they had an 11-point, a double-digit advantage over the Conservatives. Right. So what we've seen, especially in the last couple of weeks, Liberal support declining, and their advantage over the, can we say leaderless Conservatives?
I think so, yeah.
I think that might be harsh for some people, but why don't we say the Conservatives who are waiting for a new leader? Why don't we be optimistic?
Fair.
But, the Conservatives are basically only 6 points back now compared to 4 weeks ago when they were 11 points back. So the trend right now is not favoring the federal Liberal Party.
And as you just referenced, this is a 4-week tracking number, right? So we're just seeing the beginning of potential WE fallout, because that's only happened in let's say the last week or so.
Yeah, exactly, because the number 4 weeks ago was a little better than the number last week. Right? So it's got some there's probably some negative momentum right now working against the Liberals, and they've got to somehow they have to figure out a way to stop losing support, because right now it looks like there's some Canadians that are drifting away from the Liberals. Even setting aside what's happened during the pandemic and views that Canadians have had over that course.
Now, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was back in the House this week, and outgoing Conservative leader Andrew Scheer had an opportunity to ask him about the WE charity scandal. And the Prime Minister kept trying to change, the channel back to the pandemic, which has been good for his support, essentially, because Canadians like how he's been handling this. So let's watch a clip of that.
The very first act that this Prime Minister did when the pandemic hit was try to give himself unprecedented power and eliminate the role of the opposition in Parliament. And now we know why, Mr. Speaker, because when they're pushing $300 billion worth of deficit out the door, they will stop and take the time to reward their friends. That is the essence of this Liberal Party under this Liberal Prime Minister. I don't even have a question, Mr. Speaker. It's just disgusting.
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, one would think that when a House of Commons is about to pass legislation worth over $50 billion to help businesses with an extension of the wage subsidy, that there might be a question from the opposition on that, or on anything they want to bring forward. The fact of the matter is we remain focused on giving Canadians the support they need to get through this challenging pandemic. We will look creatively, we will look carefully at different ways of supporting students and elders, and we will keep doing that, Mr. Speaker, for all Canadians.
So, Nik, how is this affecting Trudeau's personal brand?
Well, when we look at the longer term trend, it's interesting, Michael. We ask every week for all of the federal party leaders. We ask Canadians whether they think that the specific party leader, whether they have or do not have the qualities of a good political leader. And check out the trend for Justin Trudeau. One of the dips. When you look at that longer term trend back in 2015, where do you remember the haircut? I know people.
Oh yeah.
Well, it was like the conservative haircut ads where the numbers for Justin Trudeau went down ahead of the 2015 federal election. We saw Justin Trudeau go on to win a majority government coming out of that, and his numbers go up. And then you see the numbers go down again with what I'll say revelations related to blackface, brownface during the last election, and now they go back up. And now what we've seen, at least in the last number of weeks, a bit of a decline. The thing is that, what we've seen is for the proportion of Canadians that believe that Justin Trudeau has the qualities of a good political leader, it's dropped about 6 points from 65 to 59. 59 is still a pretty good score, right? Like, I think anybody would be happy with a 59. But what we do is we like to look at the trend. And in addition to the ballot numbers going down for the Liberals, what we're seeing is some negative pressure on perceptions related to Justin Trudeau in the fallout from him trying to manage the controversy related to the we situation.
So, Nik, you referenced the blackface, brownface scandal. And also, this is currently his third ethics investigation that the Prime Minister is under. But I want to look at some of his previous apologies for the blackface, brownface scandal, and also SNC-Lavalin, and his most recent comments this week on we.
We have moved forward in many different ways of trying to demonstrate a government that will consistently and unequivocally stand up to defend people's rights, to defend people against intolerance and discrimination. But I recognize there is much, much more to do. And I recognize that on a personal level, I deeply hurt and disappointed many people who considered me to be an ally, and for that, I am deeply sorry. First of all, I recognize that one of the fundamental jobs of any Prime Minister is to stand up for the public interest and to stand up for Canadian jobs. And that's exactly what I did. And that what I will always do is stand up for Canadians and their jobs and their pensions and their communities. We will continue to work very hard to deliver programs and services to Canadians who need support right across the country, including to young people who want nothing more than to be able to help out. Because of a mistake I made in not withdrawing from these conversations when the Public Service recommended we move forward with the WE organization, it has gotten a little slower for young people who are facing a difficult time right now to be able to get involved in their communities and make a difference.
So, Nik, there you go. Do you see any pattern in these apologies, and how do they work?
Well, one of the things is what's clear is that Justin Trudeau is trying to focus on the intent. That when it came to the scandal related to SNC-Lavalin, that his intent was to protect jobs. When it came to the we controversy right now, his intent was to help young Canadians and university and college students. And it's almost like him trying to say that my heart's in the right place, but obviously I've made mistakes. And he also used the word disappointment. And I think that's probably the one key word that probably, for those individuals that did end up supporting the Liberals in the last federal election, might have been disappointed hearing about the blackface, brownface. That was probably the key word. But I guess we have to ask ourselves: are we in a world where it's 3 strikes you're out, or is Justin Trudeau kind of like a cat with 9 lives? Because if he's a cat with 9 lives, he's got like 6 more lives to get through and potentially survive.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that, it's Justin Trudeau is not, at election time, whenever that occurs, he will not be judged against perfection, because if he was judged against perfection, and I would hazard to say this is true for most politicians, if most politicians were judged against perfection, they'd never win, because there'd be something that people just don't like about them.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that Justin Trudeau is not being measured against perfection. He is being measured against the likely conservative alternative. So in the last federal election, even though some Canadians were disappointed, Justin Trudeau was seen as still being better than Andrew Scheer. And Canadians were very divided, because just as many people voted for the Conservatives as the Liberals, pretty well. So the big question is who will be the next leader of the Conservative Party, and will Canadians think that leader, that individual that will lead the Conservative Party of Canada, are they better or not as good as Justin Trudeau? So maybe he's going to say, hey, I'm not perfect, but I'm trying my best. But the thing is when something like this happens, it's red meat for people that don't like the Trudeau Liberals. And it's disappointment for those that buy into what I'll say the Liberal agenda and the Liberal movement in Canada.
This is also happening in the middle of July, or mid to late July, in the middle of the summer. So are Canadians really paying attention to what's happening right now? Or do you think that the Liberals might actually be able to ride this out?
Well, I think they can definitely ride it out in the short term because it's summertime.
Mm-hmm.
This is, basically what we have is an opportunity that the Liberals have created, right? We talk about governments defeating themselves. Well, it's just another example of a government making some decisions that has come back to bite it. I think they can definitely survive in the short term because there's no election and the House isn't sitting. I think the big question is there'll be some kind of attack ad from the Conservatives. It'll probably be a pretty compelling attack ad that includes the Prime Minister, the Prime Minister's mother, the Prime Minister's brother. It'll include the Minister of Finance, family members, and things like that. And it'll just make for turbulence and difficulty for the Liberals come the next federal election. So, for the Conservatives, they can keep their powder dry because, if the Liberal numbers go down now, it only means so much. For the Conservatives, the game is to be able to attack the Liberals when it counts, which is election time. So I think if you're part of the Liberal campaign team, you're going to have to brace yourself for probably some very relentless negative attack ads on this issue because of the optics.
Speaking of election time, that's kind of a hint for your prediction at the end of the show. So please, for everyone to stay tuned. But these headlines on We, though, it's every single day. We're recording this on a Wednesday afternoon, and Finance Minister Bill Marneau, it just came out, Nik, that he's paid back, more than $40,000 for family trips, 2 family trips in 2017 that we paid for. And you can see for their messaging again and again, they're trying to bring it back to the economy, helping Canadians during the time of the pandemic. So let's listen to the finance minister speaking earlier.
We're proposing to extend this program through until December 19th. What we're announcing today is the changes that will be made up till the end of November, or till November 21st. Those changes will be quite important because they'll give businesses the ability to know that they have the wage subsidy for longer. And so for businesses like Tanya's business here, she'll have confidence that this wage subsidy will be around right through until that time period. So she knows that she has the ability to hire back people to make her business work even in a time of a particular challenge.
So Nik, that's the finance minister speaking on the same day that he spoke at the finance committee about his role in not recusing himself from the wheat deal. Reporters did ask him about that, but he just kept coming back to the wage subsidy issue and issues that the government has been strong on so far. So are they able to change the channel in this way?
Well, I'm not sure if they're able to change the channel, but they're trying to change the channel. And the fact of the matter is that when it comes to the news cycle, there are only so many minutes in the day. There's only so much space in the newspaper. And, when the Minister of Finance or when the government makes an announcement, it crowds out controversy. And, this isn't a strategy that's specific or unique to the Liberals. Previous governments have done this, including Conservative governments. It's a way to crowd out negative news. So expect the Liberals, to try to weather the storm related to the wheat controversy, but at the same time, continue to kind of announce what they've done on the pandemic, because the pandemic has helped them bolster their political fortunes, and Canadians have been generally accepting or satisfied with the way the Liberals have been responding to the pandemic. But the thing is, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. That's basically where the Liberals are at. If they built any goodwill coming out of the pandemic, it's slowly being whittled away by this wheat controversy. And what the Liberals have to watch out for is that they're just more twists and turns in the story, because it feeds oxygen. It's kind of like, for the Liberals, what they have to do is suffocate this story. The best way to suffocate the story is if nothing new happens. But whenever there's a new revelation, it keeps it alive, and it keeps it as a risk that they need to manage.
And we're publishing this on Friday, but we're recording it 2 days earlier, and who knows what's going to happen in between those days. Let's talk about risks ahead for the party. One of those risks in the future is Canada's tense relationship with China. where the Liberals are facing this ongoing situation with whether or not they're going to approve Huawei for 5G infrastructure, the detained Canadians, Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig, the extradition process with Huawei exec Meng Wanzhou. So how is there any path through this for them, and what are the risks for them?
Well, there is a path. There's obviously a path through it, but it's going to be very unpleasant because the fact of the matter is the Liberals are stuck between a rock and a hard place. We have our most important ally and neighbor, the United States, having what I'll say a testy relationship with China, who's also an extremely important global economic and political power. Both of those countries are critical to the future prosperity of Canada, and there's any tension between those two countries kind of radiates to Canada. And the thing is what's clear in polling that we did for CTV and the Globe when we asked about a political decision compared to the courts deciding, what's clear is that Canadians are much more likely to support the courts making a decision on this. There's not a lot of appetite when we ask about the concept of a prisoner exchange. People are more likely to oppose or somewhat oppose a prisoner exchange as opposed to support or somewhat support it. And the kicker is, it's like we're hitting a tipping point in Canada, it seems, from a public opinion perspective. Canadians, I think Canadians pride themselves on being moderate, measured, right? We're a middle power. We asked about what the best approach should be for Canada, the government of Canada with China. And what I found quite surprising was that about 53% thought that the government should be more aggressive. And that's the actual word that we used, while about 36% thought that we should be kind of pursuing diplomacy. It speaks to the frustration that's out there. So damned if you do, damned if you don't. This is going to be a risk related to the Huawei executive, related to the Canadians that are being detained, related to 5G. Our trade talks with China, my understanding is that they are dead, period, at the current point in time. And, we need to have good relations with China. Let's put it on the table. And some people might not like that, but China is a major player in the world, and we need to have a cordial relationship with all major powers.
Speaking of another risk that's lies ahead for the Liberal Party is a potential second wave of COVID-19 in the fall. If something like that happens, we're already seeing numbers go up in places across Canada, as containment measures lift. What's the risk for the party there?
Well, the thing is it's almost like an unraveling of the pandemic goodwill, so to speak. I think for Canadians, they're taking a recurrence or a second wave seriously because of what they're seeing in the United States. They see the cases up in the United States. Now we're seeing some stats out of some communities in Canada where there's an increase in the number of cases for the first time in a significant period. And what's noticeable is that a proportion of these increases are actually young people, which connects to kind of what I'll say a loosening or slackening of the regime to fight the pandemic. So if we think of all these risks, if we think of, why don't we just, if we had rewind 3 weeks ago, it'd be pandemic's under control, people are getting back to normal, Liberal numbers are up, and then it'd be we controversy, ugh, more stress with China, not good, and a potential resurgence of the pandemic. All those things point to potential risks for the Liberals that will be, I think, difficult to manage. None of those issues are easy. Governing's not easy, but the fact of the matter is that they'll all pose risks that'll require a significant amount of what I'll say handling and management of the government in order to negotiate through those risks.
And speaking of what lies ahead for the party, we're now at the end of the show for Nik's prediction. Nik, would you like to offer a retraction?
A retraction? So harsh.
I know
2 weeks is a long time in politics. Prior to the week controversy, just looking at the numbers, because I don't really speak to politicians. I just look at the numbers. I looked at the numbers, and I believe, based on the numbers at that time, the trend for the Liberals, that the Liberals would probably be more interested in calling an election in the fall. Fast forward now, and 2-3 weeks is like a lifetime in politics. The wheat controversy and a second potential outbreak of the pandemic. I think I'm going to reverse. I don't know if you're going to play the clip in order to embarrass myself, but
Never. We would never do that.
I'm reeling back the election talk because, now I'll reel back election talk in terms of the Liberals wanting an election. Now I'd like to kind of flip the other side. If you're the Conservatives, you might want an election. You might have a new leader before the Liberals get a chance to attack that new leader. If the economy is uncertain, if the pandemic breaks out, if the wheat controversy continues, maybe if you are the leader of the Conservative Party, you might want, I'll say, a smash and grab election, because now you're going to see, a few weeks ago, the Liberals were ahead. Now they're on their heels. Maybe there's an opportunity for a new Conservative leader to shake things up.
Oh, we will see. Nik, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Nik, N-I-K, Nanos, or on the web. You can go to the website where we have all those oodles of stats, www.nanos.co.
And I'm also on Twitter at Michael Stittle. And for the latest news headlines, you can go to ctvnews.ca.